Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
The workers who keep San Diego's tourism economy running could soon get a raise. Thanks for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Sanchez, in for Maya Trabolsi. The San Diego City Council will soon vote on a $25 minimum wage for employees at hotels, event centers, and theme parks. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it would take effect next year.
Councilmember Sean Ela Rivera first introduced the proposal in February, following similar wage ordinances in Long Beach and Los Angeles. At a committee meeting today, hotel and event center workers said they struggle to get by in San Diego.
While the cost of living keeps rising, our wages have stayed the same. Rent, food, gas, everything costs more, and yet we're still being paid like it's 2010. We're not asking for a favor. We're asking for what's fair.
Ela Rivera recently expanded the proposal to cover the San Diego Zoo and SeaWorld. It also covers sports venues like Petco Park, and that's drawn opposition from the San Diego Padres.
If $25 an hour is truly what it takes to afford to live in San Diego, why doesn't that apply to your own workforce? The answer is simple. The city knows it can't absorb that cost, and businesses can't either.
Representatives of the hotel and tourism industry warned the sector is already in a precarious economic position and that raising labor costs could result in fewer jobs. Ela Rivera said he doesn't buy it.
The real problem here is not that workers are asking for too much, it's that corporations want to give as little as possible. We've heard these scare tactics before. We'll lose jobs, we'll have to raise prices, it's not the right time. We heard it when we raised the wage to $15. We heard it when we passed sick leave. Every time they say the sky will fall, and every time they're wrong.
Ela Rivera's office will continue refining the ordinance, which it hopes to present to the full city council in September. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Weather headlines here as we head throughout the next couple of days. For the most part, I'm going to be tracking sunny skies and mild conditions. It's going to be a little bit warm here for some areas, especially across the interior. But overall, great weather. Looking forward to your Saturday and Sunday. But I am going to be tracking that next chance of rain. As of right now, it's not looking like a high chance, but the chance is there. I'll detail that updated forecast coming up.
President Donald Trump held a lengthy news conference at the NATO summit in the Netherlands. During the remarks, he again disputed early U.S. intelligence reports on the effectiveness of U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites last weekend. He even went so far as to compare the success of the bombing he ordered to the end of the World War II. Laura Geary reports.
We call it the 12-day war. We think it's over. I don't think they're going to be going back at each other. I don't think so.
President Donald Trump projecting confidence that Israel and Iran's ceasefire will hold and that targeted U.S. strikes successfully destroyed Iran's nuclear capabilities.
We assess that the American strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities has set back Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons for many years to come.
Comparing the impact to World War II.
Actually, if you look at Hiroshima, if you look at Nagasaki, you know, that ended a war too. This ended a war in a different way, but it was so devastating.
This counters an initial U.S. intelligence assessment, described by sources briefed on it who say the U.S. strikes did not destroy core components of Iran's nuclear program and likely only set it back by months. Trump acknowledged the existence of the report, but dismissed it as preliminary and inconclusive.
Since then, we've collected additional intelligence. We've also spoken to people who have seen the site, and the site is obliterated. And we think everything nuclear is down there. They didn't take it out.
On Capitol Hill, agreement runs largely along partisan lines.
Donald Trump has a long history of distorting and putting his own take on U.S. intelligence assessments, regardless of what it actually says.
So you have the Iranians that are saying, look, we want to negotiate peace now. Obviously, we impacted their facilities.
Trump confirmed today the U.S. will meet with Iran next week about a potential nuclear agreement, but has repeatedly said he doesn't feel that formality is necessary. I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
The U.S. military is expected to announce 2 new military zones along the southern border this week. They're called National Defense Areas. One will be attached to Joint Base San Antonio in Texas to include roughly 250 miles of the Rio Grande River. The other will be attached to Marine Corps Air Station Yuma in Arizona. It will extend more than 100 miles along the border. The zones are considered extensions of military installations and will allow troops to temporarily detain migrants. With ICE raids continuing here in San Diego County, many are making sure that they have documentation on them. Michelle Geely reports from Orange County, where she spoke to experts about how to prepare for unexpected encounters.
Well, just with everything happening in our community, there was definitely that sense of, am I safe? I'm a citizen. Am I okay? How can I prove that?
Santa Ana community advocate Maria Corona helped a 15-year-old get his birth certificate after his father was detained by immigration officers. The teen worried he could be picked up and needed proof that he is a U.S. citizen.
He had a photocopy of his birth certificate, so it was just a copy of a copy, and he just needed an original copy of the document just to have on his person, just something that identified him as a citizen. So what he had in his hand wasn't an official document, so he wanted an official document.
Immigration attorney Mike Hussein says by law, citizens aren't required to carry documentation, but he's recommending it to his clients.
You don't have to have proof of U.S. citizenship on you if you're walking around. You don't need to carry your birth certificate. You're not required to carry your American passport. But to make it easier for everybody and for yourself, instead of having to argue with an arresting officer from law enforcement, it's advisable to carry some proof of U.S. citizenship to avoid the confrontation and the argument.
Santa Ana Congressmember Lou Correa's office tells us for citizens that would be a real ID, a birth certificate, a U.S. passport, or a U.S. passport card. For naturalized citizens, the immigration lawyer tells people to carry their certificate of naturalization.
From the home screen, it says birth, death, marriage certificates.
Birth certificates can be accessed at the office of the county clerk where a person was born. With his student ID, the Santa Ana teen was able to get his birth certificate. And because of a provision in the law, he didn't need both parents to be with him.
That was Michelle Geely reporting. KPBS has a dedicated border and immigration reporter. Gustavo Solis has done extensive work in recent weeks on the Trump administration's policies and how they're affecting San Diego. You can find his stories at kpbs.org. Rents in San Diego County have increased by 52% since 2018. That's according to data from Zillow. But they've grown the slowest in zip codes where the most new homes were permitted in that time. KPBS Public Matters reporter Jake Gatta breaks down the numbers.
All these luxury buildings are going up downtown, but do they really help people who are struggling to afford rents? It turns out the answer is yes. Thousands of new homes have been built downtown in the past few years, and more than 10,000 were permitted in the 92101 zip code between 2018 and 2024. And rents definitely still went up during that time frame, but only by about 31% according to Zillow data. That's the lowest rate in the county among 42 zip codes that had data going back that far. Meanwhile, the places in San Diego County where rents grew the most permitted far fewer homes. Here in Coronado, only 133 homes were permitted between 2018 and 2024. And in that time, rents grew by 75%. It turns out there's a connection between building lots of homes and keeping rents from going up. Councilmember Stephen Whitburn, who represents downtown, has seen the impact this can have.
If we could have rents be stable, maybe decline a little bit or increase just marginally, and people are earning more money in their paychecks, that delta is more money in their pockets, and that's what we need to do.
It's all because of supply and demand. A housing shortage means higher rents. So more housing means lower rents. Even if they're all luxury buildings like these. Jake Gatta, KPBS.
A homeless shelter in the Midway District was once cheered as a model worth replicating, but it's being forced to close its doors soon. For our latest Why It Matters segment, Voice of San Diego reporter Lisa Halverstadt explains what's going on.
The city and the county battled over responsibility for a homeless shelter, and people who live in the shelter are caught in the crossfire. At least 15 people staying in the shelter are now back on the streets. How did we get here? First, some history. A few years ago, the city, county, and philanthropists partnered to open a shelter in the Midway District. The county supplied land, utilities, and behavioral health services. The city oversaw the contract, and philanthropists donated the shelter tent that the city and county filled with 150 beds. Mayor Todd Gloria and other local leaders were excited. Here's what Gloria said when it opened.
This kind of collaboration is how you reduce street homelessness.
Now the shelter is closing. Gloria left nearly $5 million in annual funding for the shelter out of his budget as he tried to address a shortfall. He wanted the county to fund the shelter, and he said there was another problem. The shelter is next door to a building the county plans to tear down next year. Gloria says that means that the shelter can't continue to operate. County supervisors tried to help the city address costs tied to the demolition, but it ultimately was not enough to save it. The city council voted earlier this month on a city budget that gives the shelter 2 months to ramp down. It's now set to close by August 31st. So where does that leave people staying at the shelter? Gloria and city officials promise they'll help them find another place to go. The Alpha Project and the city's housing agency are working on it now. As of last week, 85 people had moved out, including 50 who went to other shelters. 15 moved to the street. 60 people were still staying at the shelter. Meanwhile, other homeless San Diegans are having a harder time getting shelter. I'm Lisa Halverstadt for Voice of San Diego, and that's why it matters.
Voice of San Diego is one of our partners for the Public Matters Initiative. You can learn more at kpbs.org/Public Matters. Today is the first day of contract negotiations for workers at Albertsons, Pavilions, Ralph's, and Vons grocery stores. Union members were handing out pamphlets at Ralph's and Hillcrest, telling shoppers they're not on strike yet, but they want their support if they do strike. UFCW Local 135 represents more than 7,000 workers at 87 grocery stores across San Diego County. The union says most of its members make less than $20 an hour. They're demanding fair living wages and safe staffing levels, and say workers could strike if a deal isn't reached by Friday.
We don't want it to come to this, but if it's what we have to do, it's what we're going to do to have our rights and try to get what we need.
Our media partner KGTV reached out to Kroger and Albertsons for comment. Both companies say they remain committed to bargaining in good faith with the union to reach a deal that is fair for everyone. If you're in the market for a new job, be patient. Experts say it's taking a while for companies to hire, and the slowdown is caused by a variety of factors. Jen Sullivan looks at the job market and how you can stand out among other candidates.
The job market appears to be cooling. Last month, 139,000 jobs were added, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Unemployment remained steady at 4.2%. Experts say there's a lot of economic uncertainty impacting hiring.
The uncertainty in the marketplace certainly causes the process to slow down on both the employer and the employee side.
Dawn Fay works at recruiting firm Robert Half. They recently asked more than 2,200 U.S. managers about hiring and found 93% say the process is taking longer than it did 2 years ago. And one of the big reasons why is they're overwhelmed with applicants.
It is causing people to have that much more information and resumes to go through.
Fee says the hiring slowdown is happening across all industries.
It's not just some of the more senior level positions. We're seeing them at entry level roles as well.
So how can you stand out?
We want to really be able to give the specifics of things that you have accomplished. What has been the return on your efforts that have been there? Those types of things tend to really stand out.
Faye says don't fill your resume with a bunch of keywords. Give specifics about how you met tight deadlines or did a project under budget. She also recommends getting a referral from someone at the company. And most importantly, Faye says the hiring process can take anywhere from a week to 6 months, so be patient. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
The Job Corps is the nation's oldest and most prolific vocational job training program for low-income Americans. It also provides housing and schooling for young adults, but the program has plunged into uncertainty since the Trump administration ordered its operations to be paused. Ivan Rodriguez reports on what could be ahead.
Carmela Munoz Cota entered Phoenix Job Corps at 18 years old. She says the impact it had on her life was profound.
When I first came to Job Corps, I had nothing. I had nothing but a trash bag of clothes with me.
For more than 6 decades, Job Corps has trained and educated more than 2 million people. Low-income people between the ages of 16 to 24 also have access to housing while learning specific training skills for up to 3 years. Graduates can either enter the workforce or an apprenticeship, go on to higher education, or join the military. Arthur Meritia with the Transportation Communications Union says many graduates continue their training with them.
We train them on railroad jobs and aviation jobs, and we've placed over 16,000 young adults and kids in quality jobs.
When the Trump administration first announced it was pausing operations for Job Corps centers, a scramble began to find shelters for students at risk of homelessness. After a judge issued a temporary restraining order, Job Corps centers worked to bring them back into the program. Meritia says if the program is axed, it would affect the students and broader economy.
If we're not filling those jobs, if we're not backfilling those positions, there's going to be less workers out there.
After successfully graduating, Munoz Cota hopes future students have a similar chance.
It's going to affect everyone because now these kids are going to go back to broken homes. They're going to go back to violence. They're going to go back to trying to survive.
I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
Well, help with their kids' behavioral challenges through a public school program. That's what some parents in La Mesa and Spring Valley have been getting. But as KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas tells us, the Trump administration is ending the grant program that pays for it.
Noah's here today. We're so glad to see you here. Noah's here today.
Twice a week, a group of 3 to 6-year-olds and their parents gather in a small classroom in Spring Valley. Their story time.
This is the color monster. Today he woke up feeling confused.
A switch from the carpet to a desk.
We can go to the table. Amelia, wonderful.
And individual activities. Parents and caregivers take notes on kids' progress and where they need help. It's called the Parent Empowerment Program, or PEP. The goal is to give families the tools they need to overcome behaviors like tantrums, aggression, and separation anxiety. Teachers in the district connect families with the program. Chelsea Gould leads it.
We talk to the school team on what they've tried and what challenges they're seeing, and then from there, we're able to mimic those scenarios here at PEP.
For 4-year-old Birdie Davis, just getting to school used to be a challenge. Grindle McMahon is her mom.
We could not get her from the car to the classroom. And it was like to a point that she would kick, scream, run away, and just completely refuse.
Activities like grocery shopping or taking a walk had become nearly impossible. Birdie is nonverbal and on the autism spectrum.
You really do lose like the village or a community when you have a special needs child.
4 months in the Parent Empowerment Program, and
it's totally changed my life. We can like take her out and we don't feel like we're prisoners in our own home, because that's kind of how it was before.
Now McMahon is helping lead classroom time. While she reads stories and hands out puzzles, parents and staff use a strategy called specific positive attention.
I like how Birdie's staying at the table, Noah's at the table.
It involves describing and praising a certain behavior.
Even like one of the first days that we were here, one of the other boys was outside and Birdie was trying to run away from me in the parking lot, which she loves to do. And I said, "Oh, wow, Danny's holding his mom's hand." And she was like, grabbed my hand. So things like that, they're very small tweaks, but it's like the way that you talk to your kid.
Birdie has come a long way since February, but there are some skills she's still working on, like trading.
4, 3, 2, 1. All done, thank you.
Kids and their parents work on specific skills and get feedback in an observation room.
Time to clean up.
Let's see how this goes.
Clean up, clean up. Everybody.
She cleaned up without having another turn. A staff member watches through a one-way mirror, keeping track of what works and what doesn't. Along with teaching parents about tools to use at home, the program shares information with kids' teachers.
So when we're able to bridge that gap between home and school to make sure everyone in that child's life are all on the same page doing the same things with the same words, we really start to see powerful change across settings, which is really, really exciting.
Federal funding for the program comes from school-based mental health grants. Part of a bill passed after a gunman killed 21 people at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas in 2022. The Department of Education awarded the La Mesa Spring Valley School District more than $12 million over the course of 5 years. In May, the Trump administration told school districts it would stop funding the grant program 2 years early. Deanne Ragsdale is a deputy superintendent in the district.
And to have nobody come and even look at the work that we were doing, to talk about what we were doing, or to see what we were doing and how it's changing lives, and have that just be stripped from us. It was shocking, it was sad, it made me angry.
A Department of Education spokesperson said grant recipients were using the funds to, quote, implement race-based actions like recruiting quotas.
We were going to hire bilingual social workers so that we could communicate better with our families and our communities where we had bilingual families. And to me, that's about partnering with families. It's not about excluding anyone.
The grant funding will end in December. Ragsdale says the district has enough funding to keep staff on through the end of next school year, but they'll need to find another funding source if they want the program to continue after that.
Your job is to work on this budget.
McMahon says she's worried families might miss out on life-changing help.
If we didn't have this program, I feel like we would be really excluded from, daily life. And this program has really made it possible for Birdie to attend a public school.
The district is appealing the Department of Education's decision. They're not sure when or if they'll hear back. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
I'm tracking a great stretch of weather here over the next couple of days, and the weekend just might look even better than that. Before tonight, tracking low clouds, especially near the coastal areas, with overnight lows dipping into the low to mid 60s, so a pretty mild start here for your early Thursday morning. Across the rest of the region, you can see temperature-wise, we'll see 50s and 60s here along the coastal areas, but interior we'll see some temperatures ranging from the 40s to even the 70s there in the desert. But overall, mostly clear skies, some cloud coverage there along the coastal areas. Future track radar, 6 a.m. you can see some of that cloud coverage working its way along the I-5 here between LA and San Diego. But by about 9 a.m. we'll slowly start to see that cloud coverage starting to taper off. And by midday, nothing but sunshine in the forecast. Now, yes, there's going to be a lot of rainfall here across parts of New Mexico. That's going to elevate the risk of flash flooding here as we head throughout Thursday. But overall, it's going to be a nice sunny day. But we will see a little bit of cloud coverage working its way back into the forecast as we head throughout late Thursday, early parts of Friday morning. But overall, the forecast here for your Thursday afternoon, nice and warm across the majority of the region. Some thunderstorm chances there across the Rockies and high plains of New Mexico. But Friday afternoon, temperatures for the most part are going to be a mix of 70s, primarily in 80s along the coast and the interior. A little bit hotter there you can see in the desert, tapping triple digits. And then as we head into Friday, very warm, very dry, very nice here as we head into the weekend. An updated look here at your Coast 5-day outlook. You can see lots of sunshine. Highs will make it to the 70s. Overnight lows will be a mix of upper 50s to low 60s, so some mild starts to some very nice afternoons. Inland forecast, overnight lows dipping into the 50s, pretty mild for this time of year, but highs will climb into the 80s, setting up for a pretty nice weekend. Across the mountains, overnight lows in the upper 50s to low 60s. Highs will climb into the low 70s before they really ramp up there early next weekend. Across the desert, overnight lows in the 70s, triple-digit temperatures maintaining as highs as we head throughout the weekend.
A new study from UC San Diego shows more baby boomers are consuming cannabis, especially women, and many for the first time. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen looks into why.
At Tradecraft Farms dispensary in Vista, Angel Navarro is seeing a steady increase in elderly customers.
And they're like, I have no idea. I don't want to smoke.
Mostly first-time user with preconceived notions about pot.
I don't want to be smelling like weed. I don't want to be reeking of it.
From decades of reefer madness propaganda.
Well, that's the purpose of me being here.
That's where Navarro comes in, to guide them through all the cannabis options available.
We do have a lot of edible gummies here.
Navarro's experience, however, is not anecdotal. A recent study by the UC San Diego School of Medicine shows a dramatic increase in cannabis use among seniors 65 and older. It was published in the journal JAMA Internal Medicine.
This is really the first time we're able to really examine current use or past use of cannabis among this older population because the numbers have increased so sharply over the past decade.
Dr. Benjamin Han is the lead author of the paper. He looked at data from the National Survey on Drug Use as far back as 2005. At that time, the prevalence among adults 65 and older was less than 1%. Fast forward to 2023, cannabis use was up to 7.4%. Han says increasing legalization is part of the reason.
And with that, I think there's also been a lot of interest in cannabis to treat chronic symptoms, chronic diseases, especially among older adults.
The study also shows increases among seniors who are married, college-educated, financially well-off, or women. Navarro has a customer like that who was seeking relief for chronic pain. She didn't like how she felt while taking prescription opioids.
And to her, she was like, I'm not living anymore. I just feel drugged all the time. So she got off of the opioids and started taking cannabis products.
But as a doctor treating geriatric patients, Han has concerns about seniors self-medicating with pot.
And while cannabis may be helpful for certain chronic symptoms, it isn't well studied, and it's hard to know for a certain patient what would, to balance the benefits versus the risk for that person.
On top of that, Han says many older patients don't tell doctors that they are using cannabis. That's because there is still a stigma among baby boomers. That was evidenced by the number of seniors who turned down being interviewed for this story because they didn't want their friends and neighbors to know they're using cannabis. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Sanchez. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.